Okay, I think we can get started. Okay, thank you so much, everybody, for joining, and welcome to today's session, the very first 2025 IRAP industry matchmaking session on critical minerals mining and the water sector. Some of you might be surprised to see me here. You might have expected Bonita, but Bonita is on parental leave. So I will be managing our WaterNEXT work for the next coming month while she's on leave. And my name is Nina Bader. I have been with Foresight for about 2 years, and I've been managing our water work in BC. So I'm very excited to dive deeper into the WaterNEXT work and learn more from you especially. So next slide, Nisha. So before we get started, I would like to acknowledge with gratitude and respect that the lands on which Foresight operates are the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. And I think particularly in today's context, when we talk about critical mineral mining, the water treatment, it's very crucial to recognize on which lands we are actually, which we are and which we operate on. So thank you. And next slide. With that, we would like to kick off the session. First, I would like to ask you if it's possible to turn on your camera so the speakers see to whom they're talking to and see the audience. And then secondly, if you could put your name and company in the chat, just that your fellow participants know who's with you today and the speakers as well, and as a little bit as an icebreaker exercise for the conversation later on. Okay, so a few words about Foresight. Foresight is a Canadian adoption and I'm already messing up the first sentence. Foresight is a Canadian clean tech accelerator. We work nationwide, and our mission is to connect industry with the world's best clean technologies. So what we do today, bringing industry and innovation together. We have a few national streams focusing on different sectors, and one of them, next slide, being WaterNEXT. It's one of our longest standing sector work, and it's Canada's largest water technology network. Within WaterNEXT, we bring together stakeholders from across the water innovation ecosystem, so innovators, industries, municipalities, academia, indigenous community, really the whole ecosystem to increase the adoption of market-ready solutions for some of the world's most pressing water challenges or some of the most pressing challenges we have at home. Next slide. Our goal is really to achieve less than 10% municipal and industrial water loss by 2033. And the reason for that is that Canada loses a tremendous amount of water and energy due to leaks in underground infrastructure. So we work with major utilities and tech companies to demonstrate that Canadian water systems can actually be improved through Canadian innovation. We can improve the water loss, the energy loss, increase efficiency, and just an overall improvement of the systems. So we call this our under 10 in 10 promise. And of course, that's not just for municipal water loss, but also industrial water loss. And with that, we go to the next slide. So today's session is in collaboration with NRC IRAP, the National Research Council of Canada, the Industrial Research Assistant Program, and they really provide or support Canadian small and medium-sized businesses with advices, connections, funding to increase their innovation capacity and take ideas to market. Now, I'm not sure if Cliff is on the call. I think not yet. Then we'll.
Can you hear me, Nina? Cliff wouldn't be able to join, but I joined.
Oh,
instead.
sorry, I didn't see.
No
Okay.
worries.
Then I'll pass the word to you for a short introduction.
Perfect. Okay, and it seems that you can hear me, so that's a good sign. I did have some challenges this morning. So yeah, thank you for your intro, and thank you for putting this session together as always. So as you mentioned, Industrial Research Assistance Program, or IRAP, is a federal program under the National Research Council, or NRC. And IRAP has been part of Canada's innovation ecosystem for over 75 years, helping small SMEs to accelerate their growth and transform their ideas into commercial success. So essentially, IRAP provides a number of services, starting with advisory support, providing connections and opportunities to network, and as well as funding. The goal is to help SMEs to de-risk their innovation cost and co-invest in their growth and development. We support businesses across Canada, over 106 communities. Every year we get about 9,000 companies coming to us to get support, both advisory and funding. We help companies to hire youth. We help companies to export. So, but essentially, I think what's important for the SMEs on the call today is to know how to actually work with IRAP. And the way you can actually work with us is the first thing is to check our website and see what the eligibility criteria is to work with us. There is a 1-800 number. Once you get to certain stages and you have enough, you have T4 employees on board, and at some point you get to a good, a little bit of revenue, then when you call the 1-800 number, they help you to get triaged, and then that will be the first level of readiness assessment. And then after that, you get connected with one of our client engagement advisors, or CEAs, and then they help you to again get assessed, and they also connect you with many of the regional and national contacts. And then after that, if once you're ready for to become a portfolio client, then you get connected with someone like myself. And our titles, there's about 260 of us across Canada, and my title is Industrial Technology Advisor. And what we do is we make sure that you get the right, after we build a trust relationship and a long-term relationship, we make sure that you get the right support at the right time for your right project. And typically these projects are R&D projects. But then there is, as I mentioned, youth employment, there is support for international collaboration, even helping you with sort of business strategy and different type of anything related to your scale up. So just to wrap up, basically IRAP helps Canadian firms overcome pain points and access global opportunities, and we want to help you to scale up effectively. So with that, any questions? Happy to answer after your presentation, Nina. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for all your support for the innovation ecosystem in Canada. And yes, for all the participants, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat or let us know afterwards. And with that, we should move on to the panel. Thank you for everyone who already put their name and company in the chat. For everybody who's joined a little bit later, please feel free to drop your information in the chat. And with that, I would like to introduce you to our three fantastic speakers and our wonderful moderator, Evan Pilkington. He's the strategic advisor for the WaterNEXT program, and he's moderating today's session. And then our first speaker is Jami Niabese. He's the VP of Business Development for the Center for Excellence in Mining Innovation and the Network Director for the Mining Innovation Commercialization Accelerator Network. Jami really focuses on creating long-term value for organizations and clients, and he identifies business development opportunities in both the public and private sectors, aiming to generate revenue, leverage funds, foster collaboration, and expand networks. His work is really focusing on bridging the gap between new mining technologies and commercialization. I struggle a bit with that last word, and I say it one more time because our second speaker, Caroline Mosbacher, is the Director DLE Commercialization at E3 Lithium. Caroline is an industry-leading expert in ion exchange and direct lithium extraction, with almost 20 years of experience working with produced water and brines in the Alberta oil sands. She has designed and operated water treatment systems on both the pilot and commercial scale, and has experienced commissioning and troubleshooting in real time to drive exceptional performance. And our third speaker, Marilyn Spink, is an award-winning professional engineer and expert in metallurgical and mining processes, having spent over 25 years managing the delivery of complex mine development projects throughout the world. A member of the Institute of Corporate Directors since 2008, Marilyn also serves as a director on several corporate boards, and she is the Director of Operations at the Canadian Critical Minerals and Materials Alliance, and she's an executive in residence at Foresight. So thank you so much for being here, and I pass the word to you, Evan. Thank you.
Great. Well, I was actually very much looking forward to this meeting today, and to start off the year, I think we have a fantastic panel. So I just wanted to add one additional housekeeping note for everyone. Perhaps some of you have been on these calls with us before, but I really want to emphasize that this is a conversation. And by that, I mean, certainly we have an expert panel, a really interesting group of people that I'm looking forward to a conversation with, but I want to emphasize that you can raise your hand. I'll make sure that we give you a chance to ask your questions during the conversation. It's not, a series of presentations and you stand off and watch. We really want you to get involved because I think it's a rare opportunity for you to engage with different professionals from different parts of the sector. And feel free to inject yourself by raising your hand, and be sure to introduce yourself, describe your company and your context for your question. So I'll be watching for that, but in the meantime, today we're obviously, as Nina said, we're focused on how water technologies and water technology providers can provide solutions for mining-related challenges. And we're fortunate to have these three colleagues here to share their insights in this topic. So panelists, as you know, this audience is made up of people who are concerned with developing companies that are going to be water-related problem-solving entities in a variety of forms, from technology to solution providers to consulting. They're all very grateful for your time here. And in order to get a sense of who you are, would you mind if I start with Caroline, then Marilyn, and then Chami? Could you please take a minute or two to describe your organization and your role within? And if you're willing, and if you feel you have time, you could also share with us a bit of the key water challenges that you've observed in that role. If that's okay, I'll turn it over to you, Caroline.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me today. I look forward to this opportunity to meet with everyone on the call and hopefully answer a few questions. I have about 4 slides here that I'd like to share to introduce you to E3 lithium. Anyone who's been watching lithium in Alberta will know that previously we were, sorry, just having a little bit of trouble sharing. Did it work?
It did.
All right, here we go. So we were previously E3 Metals, and a year ago we officially changed our name to E3 Lithium. Because we are a startup, I think our job titles change as frequently as our company name. So I'm now the Director of Process and Technology, which just gives me this wonderful opportunity to work through the many complex water management issues associated with all the processes required to extract, condition, and refine lithium into a battery-grade lithium hydroxide particle. The picture on your screen right now, this is our pilot from the summer of 2023. This was the first well licensed within the province of Alberta into the Leduc Reservoir for the purpose of recovering lithium. And from this well, we piloted direct lithium extraction technologies. So it was really exciting to bring this to the province, and very, very exciting to move from bench scale, laboratory scale demonstrations out to an on-site demonstration. So that was a really exciting step to follow through in water treatment technology development. All right, just trying to get it to advance. Here we go. A little bit more about us. Company was established in 2016. Goal right now or the goal of the company in 2016, it continues to be the goal, is to bring lithium development into Canada, specifically into the province of Alberta, and unlock the amazing potential we have here in Alberta to recover lithium from the brine streams that we have. Why we think Alberta is such a great place to do this is Alberta has such a strong history in oil and gas, and all the strengths that come with that in terms of having such an educated, innovative workforce. And there is so much of what's required for the lithium industry that are complementary to the same skills and technical services that are required for oil and gas. So there's definite compatibility there. So a lot of the work done to support water reuse, water optimization, water conservation in oil and gas is very applicable to what you'll see in the lithium industry as well. What we're trying to do here. We are trying to, or we will build the Clearwater project, which is targeting production of 32,000 tons a year of lithium hydroxide monohydrate. That's the battery grade chemical precursor required to build renewable lithium batteries. Now for our economic growth, what we're looking to do long-term is within the province of Alberta, where we have such a great regulatory network with so much experience in fostering and developing responsible oil and gas, to work with them to develop and advance a lithium industry here in the province. To really dive into water, the picture here is a really nice picture of our pilot from 2023. It's a fun picture. Really, what we did when we designed this pilot in 2023, the reason you're seeing so many valves, we set up this system so we had ultimate flexibility to test as many different recycle and stream compositions as possible. That's really, that's what we want to do. We want to learn as fast as possible. So as we look at our water usage and recycling moving into the future, processed water required for the production of lithium, our goal and what we do believe we will achieve is to have internal recycle of all our different streams, and then also to any water losses, like through evaporative losses, anything like that. The goal is to replace that actually by recovering water from the lithium depleted brine. So that's actually one of the challenges that we were asked to speak to when we look at where are we looking for support from other industry experts. It's in understanding how to recover water from a very, very high TDS brine stream. And we don't need a lot of water, we just need a little bit of makeup. But the benefit for this is it ensures we will never need surface makeup. We will never divert away. So we really want to, we're moving so much brine anyway, we really want to capitalize on that asset and just recover little bits of water there. Yes, we want to be completely unreliant on sources of external water. We think that's really important as we work to develop the green lithium technology to also be responsible with our water use. We use all processed water internally and not be dependent on external water sources. One thing that we did want to share, just to help anyone who's not familiar with lithium, there's no fracking involved in lithium, so there's no need to have a high pressure injection to increase the delivery of brine from the Leduc Reservoir. Leduc Reservoir is great, like it's got great porosity, permeability, great deliverability. So just get ahead of that question. There's no fracking needed there. This last page, it just has our contact information. So if there's anything I'm not able to address today, if anyone in the audience wants to just jot down our open email to be able to get anything into E3 is investor@e3lithium.ca. That's monitored by multiple people here at E3 who can collect those emails and direct them to the appropriate technology representatives within the company. As well, we've got our main office line there as well. Thank you so much, Evan. I think I talked for more than 3 minutes.
No, this
Like to
is
turn it-
fantastic, Caroline. I really appreciate that overview, and I'm sure everyone does on the call, because it raises many questions. We'll dig into it, after other introductions, but it certainly raises a lot of questions for me about your technology, IP, how you've managed to, harvest and pursue, probably a pretty interesting cross section of clients, and how you compete. A lot of really interesting questions that I think will serve as an interesting model for many people on the call. So thanks for being here. Marilyn, I'll turn it over to you. If you're willing, you could
Yes.
say a bit about your organization and perhaps, your key water challenges and observations to date. We're looking forward to it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for investing the time to come today. I appreciate and everybody showing up, because time is the only thing we really can give one another, right? But I wear a lot of different hats at this stage in my career. I think you can tell I'm not a fresh grad. So one of the organizations that I'm most passionate about is the Canadian Critical Minerals and Materials Alliance. And I'm also very passionate about the work that I do with Foresight. Um, uh, I feel like a bit of an elder, helping out the ventures, and because I want to see all you guys make different mistakes. I don't want to see you guys make the same mistakes I did. And then we'll fail forward together. So my role with the Canadian Critical Minerals and Materials Alliance is really sort of as an operations person. But it's really only two folks. I work very closely with in London, and we have an impact that's international as well as Canada-wide. And our members are it's about the midstream. Canada does mining very, very well. We do manufacturing very, very well. But what we need to do is take those materials that the E3 lithiums produce and actually produce materials of which the advanced manufacturers need. And part of this, I'm here to ask questions too, but the supply push mentality of our Canadian mining industry and how we push has served Canada very, very well. And those are a lot of the commodity type materials that we mine in Canada. But all these high-tech materials that are needed for the energy transition are really done through demand pull supply offtake agreements. This is a very different market. And so that's something that if you're looking, as these ventures are looking to work in this industry, there's a disruption happening because battery grade nickel is not a commodity. Lithium that's needed for the lithium chemicals that are needed are not commodities. And so typically you have a business and you need customers to sign offtake agreements. And that's why CE3 is scaling up, because they can produce a little bit of material and get the next stage in the supply chain to test those materials and qualify it, and so that they can fine tune their processes for the next stage of scale up, and it helps de-risk. So it's a very different business. So my role with the EIR is to share my knowledge with the ventures where they see it's of value. And in terms of the members of the Canadian Critical Minerals and Materials Alliance, I think what I'm hearing from many of them is that there's a lot of hydrometallurgical processing that's happening, right? It's where minerals meet the chemical industry. And I think people don't understand that some of our constraints are more chemical than they are mineral. And you might not get some of the reagents that you need if you haven't signed an offtake agreement with the chemical industry. So we hear, sort of what is the disposal, and this is of the raffinates and some of the solvent from the solvent extraction processes, which sometimes are organic. And I've often heard some of our members talk about, we're doing all this for the energy transition, right? And so sometimes the cure cannot be worse than the disease. And I think sometimes entrepreneurs are looking very myopically. And really the battery industry hasn't looked at what they're doing with all these sulfates. your yes, you're delivering copper sulfate or nickel sulfate or copper, like all these sulfates, but what's happening to the sulfate byproducts after the batteries are made. And so those are sort of some of the areas where I'm seeing we're going to need a lot of talented people to help solve some of these problems. So those are sort of, I think, a little bit of the challenges that I can speak to.
Oh, that's a great start. And I of course would also look forward to, if I don't know how we're going to fit this all in an hour, because there are many questions I have for you on your perspective related to your board work and some of the exposure you have to, different stakeholders in the industry and what kind of pressures you perceive them to be under. And it's a really interesting vantage point that you hold. So
Reach out anytime.
Yeah, I'm certain as an EIR, you have lots to share, and hopefully today we can prize out some information. So thank you for that introduction. Chami, last but not least, you and I have interacted several times in a variety of capacities in the water context predominantly, but I'm certain you have lots to describe about your work, and if you'd be willing to share a little about how your organization works and your role within, I'm sure everyone would appreciate it. Oh, you might be muted still.
Yes, that was
There we go. Thank you.
There you go. Awesome. All right. Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Charles Chimirai Nyabeze, Chami for short, and kind of two roles. I'm the VP for Business Development and Commercialization with the Center for Excellence in Mining Innovation, and I'm also the Network Director with the Mining Innovation Commercialization Accelerator. I just want to add that Marilyn Spink is also a board member with the Center for Excellence in Mining Innovation. And we're very happy to have her on board because she brings a plethora of experience and knowledge and insight into the work that we do. Just so quickly, I want to give you a bit of an overview of what we do so that you can see why it is that I will be speaking the way I will be sharing with you how we support the mining industry as a whole. So our network is actually pan-Canadian. So we have a network across Canada. And this network is designed specifically to accelerate innovation into the mining industry. So sometimes, it doesn't matter how good your technology is. What matters is, can it actually be adopted and used by somebody? So this is really our focus, is putting in place those mechanisms to work with organizations like Foresight, work with organizations like IRAP to make sure that we're moving technology forward. So we have 6 main partners across the country here. Bremen in British Columbia, Innotech Alberta, of course, in Alberta, Sask Poly in Saskatchewan, Mars, Toronto, and Misa in Quebec. And also on the East Coast, we have the College of North Atlantic as our partner. And why do we have this structure? Because Canada is blessed with innovations that are coming from across the whole value chain. So we are finding these partners as the key organizations to help us find technologies from across Canada that can impact the mining industry. In terms of how we're structured and how we work, we do work across the whole ecosystem that supports innovation in mining. I always tell people that it takes an ecosystem of technologies to actually advance technology forward. So take your technology, put it in the center of this circle, and you can agree with me that it takes a whole ecosystem to move a technology forward. In terms of what we do network development, support services, and also we issue challenges for mining companies, and we've got a perspective for global outreach as well. Our technical focus areas, and again, you'll see water popping into all these areas. Our technical focus areas are 4 productivity-related issues. We want to address that for mining, energy utilization, smart digital technologies. We all know mining is getting smarter with AI, machine learning, etc. And on the environment side, I think that's where we touch most of the water issues here. We want to make sure that mining itself is de-risked in terms of its environmental impact. We want to reduce environmental liabilities so that mining is reduced in that area. Our network has currently about 120 members or so from across the country. We do events, we have mine operators as our members, and also a global outreach, and we do commercialization agreements with various parties. In terms of where we've put our money to date, we've got about $170 million invested into projects, of which we've put in 40 in total, which is actually 30 million into projects, 10 into operations, and we have currently, created jobs, done pilots, and also we have seen technologies being commercialized and IP being developed. we're moving into these new areas here where we'll move into critical minerals, ESG technologies, and circular economy related technologies as well. So that's just a bit of context on who we are and what we do. But what I wanted to just maybe touch on quickly before I hand off to Evan is that, look, water is actually an existential resource, okay? This is why going to the moon needs us to find water there first before we go there. So preserving water quality is critical and essential. In mining, in our reputation as mining industry, we don't want to be known as people that contaminate the water. So it's important for us to look at the water piece. But I want to just touch on 4 areas where we're focusing on the water piece. Number 1, discharge. Before the mining industry discharges water back into the environment, we want to make sure the water is clean and that the water is not contaminated. So there's a lot of companies that are working in that space of discharge to make sure the water goes out clean. Another area is processed water. Mining uses a lot of water in terms of how we actually extract resources. So water is used a lot into dissolving those metals in solution so that we can get them out of solution. The other piece that's really exciting is recovery. We're seeing a lot of companies who are now looking at mining water and removing these critical minerals out of that mining water. So recovery is a big piece. And the other piece is just operations. Water is used in operations for various things, cleaning machinery, but one of the bigger uses of water in mining is dust control. That's another big area where mining water is utilized. So I'll touch on those areas, hand it back over to Evan, and looking forward to sharing more about how we support innovation and technology in the mining space. Thank you.
This is great, Chami. Thank you. And I'm not going to let you off the hot seat right away because getting right into the conversation, and I'm as a warning, Caroline and Marilyn, I'll be coming back to you on this topic as well, but somewhere that I know Chami's organization has great strength and that I know everyone on this call will be interested in relates to validation, pilot testing, promotion of success that way. And it sounds as if Caroline is in a pilot demonstration mode. And I'm curious, and I'm sure everyone on the call is similarly curious. Can you tell me, your organization, do you organize validation tests? Do you work with stakeholders in your network to navigate those? How are validation projects developed from your perspective in order to help these technologies get ahead faster or cheaper with less risk? Is that a role for SEMI, or is that the role, for the developers to come to you with these pilots prepared and they access funding? I'm just curious how these things develop.
Yeah, great question. So look, the Center for Excellence in Mining Innovation runs a program called MICA, right? The Mining Innovation Commercialization Accelerator. And through that network and through its programming, we do offer, facilitated pilot project, facilitated demonstration projects. And here's why. Our mining industry is a show me industry, right? So people want to see that what you're talking about actually works before they adopt it. And sometimes they want to see it in their own environment. So even coming forward and saying, hey, it was tested next door, who cares? They want to see you do it in their environment, right? More importantly. But how we do facilitate that the pilot demonstration project is that we can actually be a voice for the SMEs when we go to mining companies, and we can even identify consortiums of mining companies who are interested in looking at your technology as a group to see how it works. And what we've done is through our fund that we've received from the government of Canada, we've actually been able to support the scale up of some of those pilots and demonstration units so that they can then get demonstrated. Our area of interest in emerging technologies is in working with those late TRL stage technologies that are sort of, not necessarily on the experimental side, but more so now they've been proven to work on a bench scale, but now they actually want to bring it to a site and get it tested. Another advantage in working with us on that piloting piece is that we actually have access to the innovation departments of the mining operators, where we can actually be the third-party neutral voice that can upsell your technology for piloting and demonstration, which really makes it a little bit easier for you. Because remember, when you as an SME knock on the door of a mining operator, they're thinking, this SME wants a purchase order, right? But when we knock on the door, we're bringing them innovative solutions that are amazing, and they're interested in looking at that. So we do that as well. And again, our network does understand that there's a commercialization valley of death where good ideas die, and we are there to be that bridge to make sure technology doesn't die on the vine. And another piece I should add, even one more thing I should add, is that we also raise awareness of your technology through the network, right? And as I mentioned earlier on, we work with all Canadian innovation support organizations to facilitate that advancement of technology to move forward. So raising awareness, getting the people in the mining operations and organizations to know about your technology is very, very important, especially getting people in the multiple layers of the mining companies to know about your technology is very, very important in terms of getting you that demonstration and pilot project.
Well, you raise a great point, and any people who have been on these types of discussions with me before will know it's kind of a sticking point for me that, technology is one thing. There are lots of fascinating technologies that deserve great attention, but the successful companies we've encountered, promotion, the soft skills that are often not emphasized are so incredibly critical. Communication, science communication, promotion, profile, it is often considered, secondary to the core technology. Of course, technology, IP, having something that works is key, but that's only part of the picture to a successful company. And so we have lots to discuss there, that's for sure. And I think it's encouraging to hear your organization is really playing an active role in helping get it, raise profile for successful organizations that are working so hard to get that attention. And related to that, Caroline, I know you had mentioned in your introduction, you used the word pilot a few times. And I wondered if you're able to share the sort of road to this stage in your pilot, actually getting to a point where you have perhaps an engaged audience and prospective client base waiting for interesting results from you. What can you share with us about the trajectory? Undoubtedly, that's it's a very scary part to get to that point. And I bet the fear has not passed. I'm guessing you're hoping results work well, that the audience is suitably impressed. I'd love to hear what you're going to do with this pilot.
Right. So we completed our first pilot summer of 2023. The purpose of the first pilot was really to test direct lithium extraction technologies. This was a culmination of our evaluation of, I have to be careful because I don't know if we've ever press released just how many we tested, but we moved through a really extensive test to understand all available technologies on the market. And then we used a screening process driven by success criteria specific to E3, because as every technology developer knows, you need to customize to your specific customer by understanding what are their success drivers and what are their resource constraints that are unique to that company. And so we were very, very clear with all the different companies we were engaging with, and we were able to then identify which candidates were ready for that field pilot. So within our field pilot, we were able to pilot multiple DLE technologies. And from a technical point of view, we got amazing results. We were actually able to prove from a technical point of view, all of them were successful at extracting lithium from the Leduc reservoir. So it was a really amazing moment to show how different products available out there from different vendors would work. And it made the final decision actually much harder because there wasn't just one clear technical winner. But the real goal there was to demonstrate, first off, can you successfully on a large scale recover lithium from the Leduc brine? No one had ever done that before. No one had ever successfully recovered lithium using a direct lithium extraction technology from like a low temperature geothermal resource before. And so I think key successes there in terms of working with the multiple companies was E3 being very, very clear in identifying what was important to E3, what were our company-specific success metrics that helped all the different vendors then identify and say, our technology actually works best in this context. And the vendors themselves could then be innovative and say, this is how we could tailor it to better match your conditions. And we could then move through the screening and the technology evaluation process together with really clearly agreed upon success metrics. So no one was ever left feeling like they didn't know how to be successful. So
Great.
As we move forward next, we have press released this. We'll be moving forward with a demonstration, ideally, well, definitely within this year, but this time it's not just DLE. We're doing every process for lithium extraction and lithium refining. So what we'll be doing this year includes all the refining of the lithium chloride product stream, as well as the conversion through to the carbonate. So it's just giving us this opportunity to test all the water reuse streams, all the auxiliary processes around. So we're proceeding with this the same way we did with the pilot, with the evaluation of all the different options that are available. If there's time, I do actually have our press release pulled up. So I'm just going to share my screen real quick,
Please.
because I think this speaks to really showing how E3 as a company, how we really value being transparent as we engage with others, is we try and be very, very clear about what our priorities are. And like when we did our technical results and our selection, we selected technology based upon what's ready for commercial use. And so that really kind of complements what Chami was saying, is the commercialization is really, really critical. And anything we can do to get great technologies through to this commercial level of TRL readiness, it's going to open so many more doors.
Amazing and encouraging. So that's very helpful. Thank you, Caroline. I think one thing that comes to mind, maybe for those on the call, and again, feel free to raise your hand as questions arise, but what comes to my mind, I've worked in water for 20 years in a variety of capacities, from government, private sector, and so on. And every time we're launching something new or delivering new projects, doesn't matter where we are on Earth, we're asked for pilot projects, and then inevitably the cost is borne by the technology provider. In many cases, it always comes down to, am I going to be doing this work for free? Do I have to bite this bullet just to make this happen? And I wondered, Marilyn, as an EIR and with your board perspective, probably watching a variety of companies come and go over the years, this is universal, right? I mean, pilots are a struggle. To validate is really on the tech developers. Do you have advice for the companies you work with about the importance of validation and of pilot studies, and helping these companies kind of get over that hurdle with funding advice or partnership advice? How do you guide people towards confidently embarking on a pilot when it's sometimes so painful?
Yeah, well, I think Canada sort of has a history of investing in a lot of ventures and putting the infrastructure because a lot of these solutions are high cost capital. And we put that on the back of the venture. We wouldn't make our 2-year-old carry their knapsack, would we? Or pick up the groceries. So why do we do this? So there's some innovations in the space. I know Foresight has the partnership with Reaction Hub, which takes that infrastructure burden off of the startup, because they have the facilities, they have the instrumentation and control, and they will house you so you can do what you're best at. And I liken it the way people kind of, how do I say, in Toronto, we have this thing called a chef's hall, and it's a bunch of people who've been very, very successful in the restaurateurs, right? And they've invested in a fully licensed, insured, with the gas and fire suppression systems and all the hotel ware and all the advertising and marketing. And a chef can come in and book time there, and they just focus on what they're good at, and they take care of the rest, and they can build a following, and they can get a reputation of being a up and coming young chef. And then if they like the staff, they might come back for a month and do dinners with the team, and they build their team, and then they've proven themselves, de-risk the investment, and the investors are looking at for these startups and chefs, and they can go on and actually open up their own restaurant, de-risked. And that's what the RXN hubs does for these folks that are in this middle leg of the stool. I put that in the chat. Canada is weak, where chemicals meet the minerals industry, and they have a much higher chance of success. one of the pieces of advice I'd give to the ventures is when you're spending a lot of time, you need to really vet your customers and your list, because if your customers don't have revenue, they are going to ask you to invest your time and not be paid. And maybe that's not a very smart business decision. So when you hear your customers talking, especially in the mining space in Canada, about investors, and they don't talk about the customers they have, to me, that's a sign, a yellow flag, stay away. Because you don't have a business. If your customers don't have revenue, how are you going to get revenue? So that's a nuance in the sort of that junior exploration space. Yeah, and I just really think that if we look at where our economy is going, hence E3 is, you know, helping to transition Alberta's economy from oil and gas to materials. And if you think about our aluminum industry in Canada, which uses a lot of water for cooling and such, we don't own a bauxite mine in Canada, which is what the precursor material is for aluminum, but we have a thriving aluminum industry. So as it's not just a mining story. Mining is very, very important to Canada, but there's all these new businesses that are being supported by the Reaction Hub, our members that are producers of materials, where they take BMAG in Alberta. You know, they're a magnesium carbonate supplier, right? Magnesium oxide, lots of different grades of it. And so that is, they're not just a mining company. So I think that's a market for the ventures, because they all need water. And mining is trying to use less water. And I've been on projects, you know, one of your questions about a success story. Everybody talks about tailings, and it kind of drives me mental, because it's a legacy issue. But if you actually design with the end in mind, design a process that doesn't produce tailings, and then we don't have to worry about it. And yes, I just saw that in the question. I'll put that in the chat when I can, or maybe even Caroline can, if she can find it. But I just find that you know, I worked on a project in India, and they were depressing the water table so badly, the mine in the area, that none of their workers, their wells were going dry. And how can you run your mill and your mineral processing in your mine if you don't have workers that are healthy, right? So we went in there and actually revamped their beneficiation circuits, because most of the water is used in the mineral processing side of things, and to recirculate more water so that the water table could recover. And even at that point, they went from sort of a stage to, you know, to de-risk. They started, instead of just shooting, you know, tailings with, you know, millions of liters of water, you know, 50 kilometers from site, it was crazy. They started a thickens tailings, and then they actually moved to dry stack tailings. And it's a win-win, because then if a tailing dam breaks, the dry stack tailings aren't going anywhere, right? So it's about beginning with the end in mind in your design. So to the ventures in the room, from a water point of view, I think you need to understand where the industry is going, so that you're going where the puck is going to be, not where it is right now. And that will be your markets.
You make it's a very compelling point. I think it's very motivating as an industry. And I guess, not to sound cynical, but how shared is that perspective with, you know, the companies you've encountered over the years? And do you feel that mindset, that positive end state in mind, is that a shared perspective, or is that advocacy and missionary work at this stage still for you? How do you feel about that?
If you're not managing, like from a board perspective, you need to be managing both risk and opportunity, and what's good for long-term profit is, you know, like it sort of is good for people and planet. Like that company that I did that mine tailings and the water recovery work years ago in India. That was way before ESG was even made a term.
Hmm.
Right? Like you have to do what's right and sustainable for your business. And companies are with social media now, right? You have to be very careful about your brand and
Yeah.
who you have in your supply chain, because it can come back to bite you. From a Canadian perspective, you know, part of the work that missionary work that C2M2A is doing, Canada needs to get their butt out of their heads or their heads out of their butt, however it is,
Yep.
and stop talking about mining, because that's not where the opportunity for Canada is, right? We do that well already. We do that really well. Where the opportunity is to add value to all those products of mining with the reindustrialization and the reshoring. And that's where our economy is going to be growing. We're building, you know, battery plants in Ontario. Does it make sense to mine the lithium, ship it overseas, have it turned into, you know, battery materials and then brought back to be put in the batteries? Don't think so, especially when you're looking to reduce the carbon footprints of your supply chain. So I think you'll see this reindustrialization happening, and you can hear it talking. People are talking more about the middle leg of that stool I put in the chat, the refining and converting of materials, that and through this demand pull customer offtake agreement. So, and that's where the industry is going. So if you're water technologies, that's the growing market.
Interesting. And I wonder how many people are I find this very interesting. So thank you for raising that. I wonder, you touched on risk, you touched on communication. Caroline, with risk, identification of partners, the processing work that needs to happen in the future to build companies, to be part of the future of this industry. You mentioned you test and validate various technologies. How do you find these partners that, as Marilyn says, you know, that are the right kinds of partners, that are looking forward, that have the right kind of framework, they've been promoting themselves? How do you find these partners? I'm sure people on this call are hoping to hear, you know, that there's some outlet, or perhaps you have a resource that you go to, an association that you're part of. Is there a resource that you draw from to find new and inspiring partners to test? Or is it, I mean, it could be as simple as a call annually. How do you go about identifying tech partners for this type of work?
All right, there's no one solution to that question.
Damn
There's
it.
no one answer to that question. I think what we within the technology development team here at E3, that's actually one of our core mandates within the team, is we maintain an internal library of anything interesting any team member is finding. And so the goal there is just be aware of what new technologies are being advertised. And we do this by watching press releases. We watch what's coming out of Alberta Innovates. We watch what's coming out of any of like the groups here today. We follow those, and those go into our library as technologies to watch for. This looks interesting. And our initial triage is always, does this solve an immediate problem for us? Or is this something we want to watch for in the future? And so we definitely have our own watch list. And then our own team of researchers, anytime a new problem comes up, it's using word of mouth. It's reaching out to experts like Marilyn to say, oh, we're encountering this problem. Do you know anyone? Could you recommend anyone? I think it's absolutely about making those connections in industry through participating in events like this, as well as through participation in different conferences. One of E3's goals is to really leverage the experience that already exists within the province of Alberta and within Canada. So we are very active in the Canadian conferences. You'll see us at almost everyone. And our goal there is to meet everyone in Canada that has an innovative, creative solution to an existing problem.
Wow.
The reason we're really focusing within Canada is because companies within Canada, they understand the Canadian requirements for codes and standards, the Canadian requirements for electrical. Canada works under the CSA system. can make it very challenging to import technologies from outside of Alberta, especially outside of Canada. It's very, very hard to get them across the border to ensure they can operate and comply with the codes and standards here within Alberta. So you definitely have a schedule advantage if you're building your pilot skids and if you're building to Canadian codes and standards. And so that's something we look for. That's why we're so active within the Canadian market there and the Canadian conferences. So really our goal is just to meet anyone in Canada who's doing interesting work.
I think that's an excellent goal and really motivating for everyone, because your answer could have been, well, we have a very select guideline. It's very infrequent, but I mean, what an encouraging mandate that is. So I appreciate you adding that in. And you know, Chami, just to, as an organization that serves as a focal point for these, you know, tech developers and solution seekers, your organization really is a resource for people to look to annually to find interesting solutions and recommendations for how to proceed. Is there any risk of your funnel of neat technologies to recommend drying up, or are you finding that as your reputation builds, the funnel is constantly full? Are you encouraged by the amount of activity appealing to you to be part of your program and get into this industry?
Yeah, definitely the funnel is increasing because the technologies that I'm finding are disrupting mining today are actually coming from other industries. Some are coming from agriculture, some are coming from the healthcare industry, pharmaceutical industries, aerospace, fintech, agri-tech, the technologies that are simply being used somewhere else really well that can pivot into the mining space. But a couple of things I want to touch on quickly here, I know our time is running out, is that, look, most mines are built on old technology, right? So because of that, what you find happening is the technologies we're talking about here today, right? By the time they get into the plans for building new mines, 5 years into the future, right? So I think there's been a level of patience with the SMEs that are coming up with new technologies that it may not be adopted right away, right? Just be in the pipeline for future adoption. But I wanted to go back and touch on something you mentioned on piloting, and I wanted to say that brownfield versus greenfield sites, different approach to demonstration. The other thing too is that please think about your technology's impact on the bottom line in terms of work stoppage. Does the operation need to stop for your technology to be tested? Think about that, because it costs money in mining. And then another thing is, don't go on your own. Try to take your technology with another technology when you're piloting. Don't go on your own, because it's less expensive if disruption is happening for multiple technology testing. Then the other piece I wanted to say is that try to find a test bed, you know, that is near or on a mine where you can test technology before you put it into actual operations. And the last thing I want to say is make sure your technology is an undo button, right? So in other words, is when your technology is implemented, if something goes crazy, let's find a way to hit undo quickly so that you don't cause operational disruption.
You know what? That's an ironically encouraging thing to end, a note to end on. I think it's great for, that's great advice that I haven't heard in all of these calls, that, you know, make sure you have an undo button and that it's quick and efficient. And actually that's very useful advice. I'm very sorry to say that we've come to an end, and all I have is literally a notepad full of questions. There's so much more to ask, and I'm sure other people on this call feel the same. I'm certain I'm going to turn it back to Nina to close out, but I'd like to say that there will be ways to reach our panelists after this, and I really appreciate everyone's time here, and I'm hoping we can stay in touch for further discussion. There's so much to learn. So from my part, thank you, and I'll turn it back to you, Nina.
Thank you so much, Evan, for moderating this very insightful discussion. I personally learned a lot, so thank you for sharing your perspectives and some call to actions, I think, for the audience, to some takeaways for the audience. If it's okay with the speakers, we're happy to make connections if somebody has any follow-up questions or would like to connect.
No problem.
That's good? Okay. Good. Thank you so much. So please reach out if you have any questions to the speakers. And with that, my contact information is in the chat. With that, we would like to wrap it up. Our next IRAP industry matchmaking session will be on February 12th The next session will focus on the built environment sector and circular water. So we're looking forward to that as well. And yes, with that, I let you go on with your day. Thank you so much again to the speakers, to the participants, to the moderator, to our team in the back who was managing everything. And have a wonderful Wednesday. Thank you.